What's up, everyone? My name is Matthew Dale. I'm here to help you play better, sound great, and understand more. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you some of my favorite worship guitar hacks. I'm going to show you a couple of different chord shapes and just how easy they can be to manipulate to get a number of different textures in whatever song you're playing. In order to further understand the concepts I'm going to be sharing in this video, go ahead and hit the link in the description below to download my music theory cheat sheet. This helpful guide lays out a number of essential music theory concepts to improve the way you think about music. Hit the link in the description below and download it at the end of this video. Okay, so in the opening example of this, the backing track is playing these chords. So C, F, A minor, and then G, and then we switch gears, we play a D minor, F, C, G, D minor, F, G. So that's our basic chord progression. We're in the key of C, and if we follow the number system, we'll recognize that C is the 1 chord, F is the 4 chord, G is the 5 chord, A minor is the 6 chord, and that D minor that shows up is the 2 chord. And all you really need to do to understand that is just count the chords on your finger. You just even count the root notes on your finger. C, D, E, F, G, and then A, which would be 6. Now in this environment, you don't always want to be playing big open chords as an electric guitar player. Generally speaking, if you have an acoustic guitar player with you on a weekend, they will be playing these big open chords. Meanwhile, there's also going to be piano probably going on. There might be an ambient pad that's played from tracks. You'll have drums, you'll have bass. Typically, a modern worship environment has a pretty dense mix. So rather than playing these big open chords, which may make sense at first glance if you're looking at a chord and lyric chart, what I would do is actually play quite a bit up the neck and maybe start with these higher triad voicings. Now, not to get too involved with how to learn these voicings, you can think of this really easily if you have a pretty decent understanding of bar chords. I'm just going to play this C bar chord at the 8th fret. It's the E shape of the bar chords. And I'm going to split this chord in half. So what I have going on is 9 on the G, 8 on the B, and then 8 on the high E string. This creates a very small first inversion C major triad. What's nice about this is this type of chord generally stays out of everyone else's way. You can occupy your own space as a guitar player when you're playing this chord shape. Now here's where the hack comes in. The first thing you want to have a decent command of is how to voice lead this chord around the 1, 4, and 5 chords. So if you remember a second ago, C is 1, D, E, F is 4, and G is 5. So C would be here at 9, 8, and 8. An F major chord that's voice-led, and all voice-leading means is keep things pretty close, and oftentimes that will also mean keep one of these notes the same. In this case, it's the C note on the 8th fret of the E string that we leave as the same note. So our F chord is spelled 10, 10, and 8. If we go back to C, 9, 8, 8, our G chord is just on the other side, 7, 8, 7. This looks like our little D chord shape as well, if you can imagine playing this D chord, D, E, F, G. So those are our triads voice-led. C, F, C, G, and then back to C. Step 2 of this incredible hack is this. Rather than play the full chords on the 4 chord and the 5 chord, I'm going to actually sub in a couple of sus chords. And what sus means is we are removing the third of a particular chord and subbing it out for either the 4th degree of the scale or the 2nd degree of the scale. Here's why this is useful. So if I take my C chord, this one would be spelled number-wise 3, 5, and 1. Well, if I sus this, I take the third out and I make it a sus 4, and I play F, G, and C, or 4, 5, and 1. This chord sounds really nice as an F chord. So if I play the full F chord up there, that's what it sounds like. And again, you're occupying your own space in the mix when you play this chord voicing. The 5 chord works in the opposite manner. So C chord, C sus2, makes for a nice G chord. And if you don't like the C on top, you've always got that D chord shape that's going to be right there as sort of a get out of jail free card. And in the opening example, you probably heard me resolve that this would be a G sus4 chord. And that can be a little bit confusing. So C sus4 is also F sus2, and C sus2 is also G sus4. I don't want you to get that confused by that. Just think of all of these as types of 1 chords. 1 sus4 is a 4 chord, and 1 sus2 is a 5 chord. And if you want to resolve that sus chord, just go ahead and bring that C note down to a B, just like you might do on a D chord down here. The same basic concept. Step 3 is where it gets really, really, really interesting. So you might remember the opening example uses an A minor chord and a D minor chord. But so far, I haven't shown you an A minor or a D minor chord up the neck. This is where we can utilize the idea of relative chords, just like relative keys. The relative minor of C major is an A minor. So C major and A minor share the same notes in their respective scales. You can think of the same thing with chords. An A minor chord is spelled A, C, and E, and a C major chord is spelled C, E, and G. And in fact, if we take this one step further, an A minor 7 chord is A, C, E, and G. That C major chord is within that A minor 7 chord. To fully flesh out our keys, all of the major chords in a key have a relative minor chord in the key as well. So C major has the relative minor of A minor. F major has the relative minor of D minor. And G would be an E minor. So we can still use these small triads. We can play C in place of an A minor. We can play our fancy F in the case of a D minor. I'm going to put a D bass note so you can hear how it sounds. And we can play G as an E minor. So if we apply this treatment to our chord progression, we start with C, and then we move to an F chord. Like I said, I'm going to play that C sus4, and then we're going to go back to C because we're on an A minor. And then we move over to G, and you can play either the C sus2 or move right down to the G chord. And then we move over to a D minor chord. I'm going to play again that F chord. And then we play F. I'm just going to leave this chord shape here. It's the same chord. F. And then we play C. And then G. And then we're going to go back to our D minor. Again, thinking the C sus4 shape. And then F. And then G. So the only 2 chord shapes that I'm really thinking about are C, altering it a little bit, and then G. This also sounds really good if you add a little bit of dotted eighth delay and you play an eighth note rhythm with your pick. So I'm just going to arpeggiate these chord shapes. Just kind of like that. Just something real simple, just going up and down the strings. G, B, E, B, G, B, E, B. If I add some dotted eighth delay and a little bit of grit, and you hear that example that I played in the beginning of this video. Now here's another chord shape that I like this concept with as well. It's a power chord shape, but rather than play our power chords like we might typically do, in a worship environment, these low power chords might mess around with the bass a little bit. We might be stepping on the bass player's toes, and we don't want to do that. So I'm actually going to play these chords up an octave. And this chord shape, this power chord shape, is going to look a little bit weird, but it sounds really, really, really good, and you'll see some other benefits about it. So I'm playing C on the 10th fret of the D string, and then a little more like a traditional power chord, I'm going up a string and up 2 frets. So that's the G note, 12th fret on the G string, and then the pinky is going to go to the 13th fret on the B string. This is a little tiny power chord shape on the middle 3 strings, D, G, and B. And this does wonders to stay, again, out of everyone else's way while building a really big, lush texture. Now, we're going to voice lead this again. So here's C, F, which, if I move down here to this F power chord, the only notes in an F power chord are F, C, and F again. I can play all these by voice leading by taking this G note off of the G string and replacing it with F on the 10th fret. So 10, 10, and 13. So here's C, F. Now, following the chord progression, A minor, we're going to play C again because we can do that. They're relatives of one another. And then G, this is where I get a little bit fancy. It's not anything too difficult to do on the guitar, but it does sound really nice and a bit complex. I'm going to move my pinky back into a B note, the 12th fret on the B string. And while this is technically a C major 7 with no third, it works really well in a worship environment over a G chord. So it's a little bit of that G sus, but the C is voiced low. So it's kind of like, if I were to give it a theoretical name, G add 11, no fifth. But more importantly, it's really easy to get to. Just scoot the pinky back 1 fret. Then if we go on, we play D minor, which we're going to use the F chord again. We stay on F, go back to C, G, D minor, there's our F power chord again, F, and then G. Now I'm going to go ahead and play this example again, and I'm going to treat these chords a little bit differently. So at first I'm going to play just diamonds over each chord, and then the second time through I'm going to play with a dotted eighth delay in some distortion, and then the third time through I'm going to play these power chords. And I want you to hear how each treatment gives the song a very different texture. The track is on a loop, so I'm not doing anything in post-production. It's the same dynamics, it's the same volume coming through the track. The only thing that is shifting the texture is the guitar. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you guys get a lot out of it. And if you want a guide to some essential music theory and a better understanding of some of the concepts I talked about in this video, hit the link below in the description to download my Essential Music Theory cheat sheet. My name is Matthew Dale. I'll see you on the next one.